Solo, a Star Wars story. I love that title so much. Now, this is going to be my spoiler-free review of Solo, a Star Wars story. I will not be going over any spoilers, as I just mentioned, so I won't mention whether Han and Chewie survived in the film. Nothing like that. So you're safe. You're good. Now, coming into this film, before I even go into it, normally on this channel we like to do Easter eggs, references, and trivia. We're not going to be doing it for this film. I will mention there are definitely a lot of references and stuff that are in this film for sure. One thing I did want to mention that I'm sure probably many of you already know is Ron Howard did take over from Phil Lord and Chris Miller to direct this film. Now, with the interesting connection between Ron Howard and George Lucas is, really quickly, Ron Howard was, of course, in the film American Graffiti back in 1973, which George Lucas did direct. Of course, George Lucas created Star Wars, and also, too, Ron Howard directed a 1988 film known as Willow, which George Lucas executive produced, and George Lucas, of course, came up with the character of Han Solo. So I thought that was a little interesting connection that Ron Howard was now directing Solo. So now, with a little trivia aside, let's get to the actual review while you're here. Now, going to this movie, from the trailers and, the casting, me personally, I'm a diehard Star Wars fan, but I just was not, and I just didn't have the same anticipation level as I did with many of the other Star Wars films. Whether they were good or not on the end result is a different story, but I'm just talking about my actual anticipation level coming into this, and the trailers really didn't do a lot to, kind of, again, just ramp up my anticipation level. So I will say one thing, though. The one thing I thought I was going to hate in this movie the most was Alden Ehrenreich as Han Solo, and I actually really did not mind him. I mean, was he, in terms of comparable to Harrison Ford's, it's hard to, to do that. Obviously, he's playing the same character, so it's inevitable to make those comparisons. But he definitely had a certain level of charm to him that I really enjoyed. There were definitely moments in the film where, he really feels like Han Solo. And then there were other moments where he really just hammied it up a little bit and just, he kind of kept giving me, kind of having that smirky smile every 2 seconds. And I don't know, it was a little, again, just didn't feel like Solo. But again, for the most part, I thought he gave a pretty good and genuine performance. And, he wasn't, trying to imitate, Harrison Ford from A New Hope or Empire Return, rather. But, again, I did, thought he gave a pretty good performance. And again, that was the thing I was most worried about coming into this film. And it didn't bother me as much as I thought it would. So, from that perspective, I did like Alden Ehrenreich. I will say some of his interactions with Chewie really worked. I'd say the interactions I probably enjoyed the most were with him and Woody Harrelson's character. I loved Woody Harrelson's character in general. I just thought he was very three-dimensional. He was actually a very interesting character, and I liked a lot of the motivational speeches he gave Han, and just again a lot of their interaction, just making Han destined to become the man that we all know and love in the original trilogy. And again, I really appreciated a lot of those interactions and just him challenging Han. Going into the Han Solo and Chewbacca, interactions, there were definitely a lot of sequences I really loved that really, gave me that feeling back from the OT series and that I really appreciated. And there were definitely some moments where you'll know what I'm talking about when you see the film that really, leaps of logic bound, where you're like, how is the character not in severe pain in this situation? You know what I'm talking about when you see the movie. There's a scene where you're like, how is the character's back not broken right here? But other than that, again, I really enjoyed the Han Solo and Chewbacca interactions. It really, again, just not spoiling it, but if you've seen the trailers, that this is the film where this is obviously where they meet each other. So from that whole sequence, I liked it. One of my big issues with this film that I had was that I felt like a lot of things just really happened, were kind of rushed, and you didn't get time to breathe and feel, what had just happened. Just things happen oh, done, next to the next sequence. And, just a lot of things just felt very generic, and a lot of, like I said, lines that were very hammy and just really some references that just really hit you over the top. Just really on the nose, rather. And like I said, from that perspective, those were some of the issues I had with the film. But I mean, overall, look, I had a good time. It was fun. Some of the characters, were some of these characters, like I said, you were invested in. I really loved Woody Harrelson's character. I actually, the limited screen time we did get of Lando Calrissian, I really enjoyed Donald Glover. I thought he had a real level of charm to the character, and I like seeing some of his some things he did that really, again, just reminded me of of Billy D. Williams, Lando Calrissian. Just again, I really enjoyed his interactions with Han Solo, and just again how they met each other, and obviously what happens later, which you can probably already guess. But just a lot of those kind of sequences I did appreciate. But again, one of the things that I would have liked this film is a little more time to breathe. Everything just really is rushed and happens really quickly. So also want to talk a little bit about Paul Bettany. I like Paul Bettany a lot. It's just this villain. I mean, again, Paul Bettany's acting is fine. It's just the way the villain is written. He felt, again, very generic is a word I like to use a lot when describing this film. He felt very generic. You know, I don't know. I just didn't feel menacing. I never felt a certain threat level for the characters whenever, you know, he was on screen or doing his thing. And I think that was another big issue I had with this movie is I never felt the weight or the stakes or the calamity of everything, because obviously if you've seen the original trilogy, you know what's going to happen in terms of who survives and who's not going to survive. So it kind of just, again, it takes away the weight of the story and just, you know, your emotional investment into who's going to survive and who's not. All right, let's go into the action in this film. Now, there are definitely a bunch of action beats in this film, and I liked them. There was a couple times where I felt like the camera, I wasn't really able to see stuff, but again, the intensity I felt while in the scene and some of the music that we get, I'm not going to spoil it, but we do get some John Williams callbacks from the original trilogy, and it's real, like, again, just in the moment, the intensity of the battle and hearing the music, just, it felt like Star Wars again. So some of those action sequences that included John Williams music, I really appreciated. And there were actually some really cool action sequences in general. There was one on a train where you really got to see them. Just, it kind of felt very Mission Impossible at the end of the first film, where, you know, Ethan Hunt and Jim Phelps, he's chasing him on the train. Felt very similar to that stuff. I did like a lot of the different styles some of the action sequence took. Like, it definitely reminded me of some of the other action films that came before it, like Mission Impossible, other films like that. All right, so concluding Solo: A Star Wars Story. Like I said, I didn't love this movie, but I didn't hate it. It was okay. I mean, there was definitely fun moments in it. There was definitely entertaining moments. There's also moments where it really dragged and a lot of exposition, just exposition, and some really references that kind of hit you a little bit over the head and on the nose. But overall, like I said, it's a fun and entertaining time. You should definitely check it out and see for yourself what you think. There was some good action sequences. I really enjoyed Woody Harrelson's performance. He's a very three-dimensional character. I loved most of Chewie's scenes as well, and some of his interaction and dialogue with Han Solo. There was one piece of dialogue with Han Solo towards Chewbacca that kind of really bothered me. And again, in my opinion, you guys will know what I'm talking about when you see the film. But other than that, Ron Howard's direction was okay. I mean, there was definitely, I'll say this, there was one major Willow reference and Easter egg in there, so be on the lookout for that. But again, cinematography wise, I thought this film was beautifully shot. Some cool action sequences, some pretty good special effects, really cool use of practical effects when they did use it. And I do like that they're going back to practical effects, which is really good. So overall, though, if I had to score this out of 10, I'd go 7.3 out of 10. Well, that's going to do it for this review. Definitely let us know what you guys think of the movie after you see it. We'd love to know your opinions, because ours really don't matter. It's yours that do. And if you like these reviews and you want to see more like it, hit the subscribe button. See you guys next time.